Well, hi, and welcome to the session around broadcasters in Europe and some of the innovation that is taking place in this part of the world. My name is Tomas Granryd, and I work as head of digital partnerships at the Swedish Radio, with a focus on connected cars and voice devices. And I'm also sharing the Vox group. That is a group that I will explain a little more about later on. First, I would like to outline the situation around public service media in Europe, because I think it's quite different from many other continents. Public service media is in Europe generally very well trusted. In some of the countries, it is among the most trusted organizations in the country. Public service media is also often quite popular. We generally have a big market share. Of course, this differs a lot from country to country, but if you go to Swedish Radio or Sweden, Swedish Radio has a little more than 70% of the market share. So public service media is both well trusted and often quite well used. And why is that? Well, there is, of course, several different reasons. We have been around for many years. We have played a vital role of the modern history of the country. But we're also funded by the people, so people expect us to be objective, trustworthy, professional, and in some sense, leading the market. Practically all public service media in Europe are organized under an NGO called the EBU, European Broadcasting Union. EBU is perhaps mostly known for the Eurovision Song Contest every year. But it's also a place for all media companies in Europe to collaborate around certain areas like news, sharing live concerts, and sharing innovation ideas. As you can imagine, being in Europe, developing stuff for voice can be a bit challenging. I mean, all the tech companies that actually produce voice devices are American. So you could see this as a challenge, or you perhaps could see it as an advantage, at least in the beginning. Why is that? Well, the first Alexa was released in the States November 2014. The first Alexa was released in Europe, in the UK, September 2016. That's kind of 2 years between. And it's not like we don't travel. It's not like we don't travel and buy stuff. And it's not like we don't travel, buy stuff, and kind of follow the tech reports very, very closely. So in a way, Europe had 2 years to prep quite hard and understand how these things work, what stuff that worked in the States and what stuff that didn't work. So in the beginning, it was kind of a sense of a feeling that we were looking into this crystal ball when we followed the States. So how is the penetration in Europe now? Because they have, of course, been part of Europe for a couple of years now, the voice devices. Alexa is present in about 5 to 6 countries, depending on how you count it, or actually 5 to 6 languages. But they're sold in 30 plus countries in Europe, which of course gives the audience a quite lousy user experience. Because if you try to speak Norwegian or Norwegian English to an Alexa, it probably won't understand you. Google has been more successful in converting for smaller languages and countries. They're sold in around 11 languages or areas in Europe. So far from all countries have a voice device on their language in Europe, and a lot of countries lack both Alexa and Google Assistant on their own language, which we see is a way to be the key component or the key factor of gaining a large audience, that you have both companies on your native language. So the fragmented situation, as I was trying to explain, with Europe as some small countries, some really big countries, a lot of small countries with very specific languages that no one understands. It kind of makes the Europe a fragmented situation. But if you combine trust, the reach, and the fact that we are well funded so we can take risks, and the idea of that we are kind of fragmented with, in a way, closed markets, because the language is a market of its own and it's a closed market. You get the Vox group, in a sense. The Vox group was started as an initiative to try to form a group that could work together on stuff in Europe around voice. And we started 2017, 2018. Today, there is like 30 plus member states that are members of the Vox group. And we have all agreed on a couple of things when we work together. We have agreed that we should share everything. We should share best practice, we should share code, we should share ideas, we should really try to work together very much. We should also look at this group as one voice. We should gain strength in numbers. We should talk to the tech giants with one voice. If, I mean, Sweden with 10 million people address something to Google, perhaps they won't listen, but if the whole of Europe actually addresses it, they will probably be more attentive. And why is this? Well, it is because there is no competition, because there really is no competition between countries in Europe. Unless we organize hackathons, that we do a lot, then there is quite fierce competition, of course. And if you want to be part of a hackathon, please let me know. We'll see if we can arrange that. So to summarize, voice, we really think that voice will be will change the media landscape at its core. Of course, not suddenly overnight, and we see a bit of a shift already, but slowly. But this is a long race that we see it. We see that public service media should lead, not follow. I mean, we have reliable funding. We should take risks. We don't have to maximize audience for every innovation that we do. And we don't have to compete. We shouldn't compete. We should share. For the technology is so young and in many times so confusing for the audience. So we have to find the smartest way to do is to actually share and to be collectively a bit smarter. So that's a brief overview of Europe and the Vox group. And now we will listen to some of the members in the Vox group that has done some interesting stuff. I think that we first would like to go to Germany and say hi to Tim Pfeilschifter, that is product manager for voice from Bayerische Rundfunk, and Daniel Freytag from SWR Audio Lab, Future Radio Experiences. Hi, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Thomas. We'll give a brief overview about our activities here in Germany. We are ARD, we're kind of the EBU of Germany. We're an organization, a federation of multiple smaller members that cover different areas in Germany. And we have 5 major brands. We have ARD, which is the main TV channel, actually. And then we have Tagesschau and Sportschau, which are our main news and sports brand. We have ARD Audiothek, which is our main audio-on-demand service. And we've got Kika, our kids channel, together with ZDF. And in all of those different member organizations in Germany, you have lots of experts that worked on voice assistants, just like all over Europe. So you will see a lot of similarities of what's happening in Europe and what's happening just in Germany alone. And we have lots of experts there. I mean, we've developed over 100 Alexa skills, over 50 Google Actions, and we've got 3 Bixby capsules on Samsung. So there's a lot of knowledge there, and there are a lot of developments. But to us, it kind of feels like the early days of the internet. So this is the website, the first website from our major radio network. And while we'll see what's happening first in America and then coming over to Europe, still, just like those broadcasters are figuring it out, all the tech manufacturers are figuring it out as well as we go along. And so it's interesting to be part of it and be part of creating it. And like I said, we have lots of different teams all over Germany that work on this kind of stuff. And they've all been doing their own thing, but we try to basically bring them together. So this is why we built something that we call the Development Competence Center for Voice Assistants, which is led by BR, where Tim is from, and SWR, where I am from. And we try to like accelerate the exchange. We do this by, for example, doing monthly calls where we openly exchange our ideas, our new platforms that we discovered and stuff that we're working on. So if someone wants to work on a new topic, let's say we want to build a new news experience, we don't have to do everything from scratch and waste a lot of money, but we can go to other members because we know, okay, they built something similar, where we can share a lot of knowledge there, just like we talk to our EBU colleagues who are also doing similar things. And just like it's important to get the people together, it's also important to get all the metadata together. Because once you've got all the metadata in one place, you can start to become something like your own aggregator. Usually, if you distribute a normal radio channel on those smart speakers, you rely on third-party aggregators, which are great as a first step into the platforms, but they don't give you the flexibility and your brand visibility that people trust. And they also give some kind of middleman where we don't know, are they fully protecting the data of our customers, of our listeners? And so we try to build a first level presence on all major platforms, which is a lot of work. We've done some great progress there, but I think there's still also a lot to do. And just like we do these aggregated services under, for example, the ARD Audiothek umbrella, we also do code exchange, just like Thomas mentioned, where we exchange code in the EBU. We also do stuff in Germany. So if, for example, NDR, the broadcaster in northern of Germany, develops something and we want to build something similar, it obviously makes sense that we share this so we don't have to build everything twice or even more times than that. And just like we exchange code, we also exchange knowledge and we do joint projects, which is what Tim will talk a little bit more about.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. Yeah, one of our joint projects we created was an interactive radio drama in 2019. And its German name is Tag X, das interaktive Hörspiel, which basically translates to Day X or D-Day. And it's about right-wing groups that try to overthrow the German government by using a virus, and only your character can really save the world. And it has around 120 different scenes and 15 different endings. And we also have a handy chart because we know it's sometimes difficult to understand what the choose your own adventure style radio play is. So what you can see here are all the different scenes we have, more than 100. And the small arrows you can see between them are the different decisions you can make. And we also have a way to see how many people or where people choose which way, which you can see right here. For example, you can see here that the red way is a very long way where main decisions were taken, and the blue way is the person choose options which led to a very short experience because the person died very early. And what were the main learnings we get from this project? First was, don't give the users more than 3 different options to choose from, because otherwise they will mostly forget the first option you gave them. The second one is that the normal voice of the voice assistants really pulls the user out of the experience because it's too monotonous. And we can really recommend using custom recorded audios for this. And the third one is that the user's decisions have to matter. So we really recommend to not use pseudo decisions. What is a pseudo decision? For example, if you give the user the option to go to a mine or to a forest, the user says, yeah, I want to go to mine. And when he reaches the mine, the game basically tells him to, yeah, well, the mine's closed, please go to the forest instead. We really recommend you not using these kinds of decisions. And the fourth one is also very interesting. It's a free tool called Twine, which we use for interactive writing and which we can really recommend using. And results of the projects were more than 500,000 different interactions with the application, more than 70,000 users, and more than 4 of 5 stars. 60% of the users played it on Amazon Alexa, 20% on Google Assistant, and 20% played it on a custom browser version we made. And now our next step is to use these learnings to create an even bigger interactive radio play for an even more important, even more known ARD brand. And of course, to, as Daniel already said, share the technology and content infrastructure we created with our ARD partners.
Thanks a lot. And I guess back to you, Thomas.
Thanks a lot. Super. That was really good. Really good. Well, we'll switch to Justine. Bonjour, Justine.
Bonjour, Thomas.
Justine Gheeraert is the voice and IoT product manager of Radio France and have done some really interesting stuff. The floor is yours, Justine.
Thank you very much, Thomas. So first I'm going to explain what is Radio France. So Radio France is a French public radio. We have 7 main radio stations, accounting for more than 75 radio streams. And our radio stations provide news, culture, music, and also local contents. And usually we are located in this iconic building in Paris, built by the Général de Gaulle in 1963. And just to give you an idea, we have about 15 million daily listeners for broadcast radio, about 24 million daily visits on our application and websites. And in France, there are about 67 million inhabitants. During more than a century, people were able to listen to broadcast radio. They had no choice but to listen to what was on air. And for the past year, internet radio has completely changed the way people access to audio content. They can choose the programs they want, when they want, on any kind of device. And smart speakers and voice interfaces are part of these new experiences that we want to offer. Radio France is present on 4 voice platforms: Google Assistant, Alexa, Siri, and Jingo. Jingo is a French-speaking assistant that has been developed by the French telco Orange. All kinds of devices included. Last summer, we had 20 million voice user interfaces in France and 3.2 million for smart speakers. And if we look at the market share of different smart speakers providers, we see that in France, Google Home and Amazon Echo are competing hard to dominate the market. And so we need to find a way to work with both actors. Why do we invest in voice experiences? The first objective is to try to boost customer retention. We know that we have loyal listeners that are going to replace their old radio set by a smart speakers, and we want them to be able to find their favorite content. The second objective, which is the most challenging one, is to boost customer acquisition. We want to bring down the average age of our listeners, and we are trying to do so by developing new features and new content. Now I'm going to talk about a specific project named Question franceinfo, whose objective is to attract a younger audience. franceinfo is our radio, our news radio, and I'm going to explain how voice interfaces are changing the way our radio stations are producing content. What are the origins of the project? After the success of our flash briefings for franceinfo, we wanted to test a new way to provide news, a more interactive way. We were inspired by the successful concept of question of the day in the US and in the UK. And from our previous experience of developing voice experiences, we had in mind 3 main ingredients to make it a success. The first one is speed. A user doesn't want to spend hours talking to a machine, so we had to find a medium way between speed and interactivity. We are also aware that if we want to be integrated in the daily routines of users, it should not take more than 3 minutes. The second point is that we had to have content regularly updated because we want to give reasons for users to come back on our custom skills every day. And last but not least, we wanted to create a memorable sound design. Once you've launched the application, you never hear Alexa's voice again. We are using the voice of our journalists. And we added a music theme from Jean-Michel Jarre, who is the sound designer of the radio station. So better than words, I'm going to show you how it works.
Alexa, lance la question France Info.
Bonjour, c'est Tomas de France Info pour une question sur les folles rumeurs au cours de l'histoire. On est aujourd'hui certain que Marilyn Monroe s'est donné la mort. Vrai ou faux? Vous avez 3 secondes.
C'est vrai.
Mais non, Lucas, c'est faux.
Okay.
So you get an overview of what the experience looks like. So what were the editorial challenges? First of all, France Info wants to be the leading news provider on all kinds of platforms, mobile, web, and voice. And they knew that they had to produce dedicated content to try to be also the leading news provider on this kind of platforms. We have 7 journalists that are involved in the projects around 7 topics. So we have international, high-tech, politics, fake news, environment, sports, and history. We have an additional topic, which is history. We have pre-recorded questions that we use as a backup when there is a breaking news session. So that means when journalists are no longer able to produce their regular chronicle. Prior to launching, each journalist had to go in a studio and record about 40 static messages, such as, hi, it's Lucas Manger from France Info for an international question. And we added over the top a layer of sound design. And now that the project is launched, journalists had to find a new routine. After recording their 2-minute chronicle on air, they go back to another studio and record a question related to their chronicle. After that, they tell the technicians that their question is recorded and whether the answer is true or false. After that, it's automatically updated inside our custom skills, and the content is updated every day at 3 p.m. So just to sum up, prior to launching, journalists had to pre-record those 40 static messages, and now every day in our product team, we are just waiting for 2 audios to come from France Info, which are the question and also the chronicles that we use as the answer for the question. So you were able to understand what we are currently working on, but what is coming for us in the next few months. Because of smart speakers, we've been focused on home experiences, but we now want to design experiences that are more adapted to a mobility context and specifically for cars. The second point is content discoverability. You all know how difficult it is to make users discover skills on invisible interfaces. So we want to find solutions, and we are currently working on some experimentations. And the last point is that we want to enable our users to use voice when they use other digital products from Radio France. We want them to be able to say, for example, hey, Radio France, I want to listen to this or this content. So that's all for me today. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that you are all going to test Question France Info.
Yeah, super. So thanks so much, Justine. Super interesting. Moving across the canal and entering the UK. Hi, Ben.
Hello, Thomas. How are you?
I'm great. Ben Rosenberg is head of carriage at the BBC, and he's here to present some of the work that the BBC are doing. Please.
Thanks very much. So I head up the carriage team at the BBC, and we're responsible for the third-party relationships that the BBC has with partners who want to make our products and services available in the UK. Voice has always been a keen interest for me, and I have the privilege of representing the BBC on the EBU's working group and Voice, the Vox group. The BBC is the world's oldest national broadcaster. 2 years out from our centenary, we reach over 420 million people globally, and we go out in over 40 languages. The bulk of the BBC's funding comes from the license fee, which each household in the UK is expected to pay. The license fee is set by the British government, but we operate completely independently from them. Outside of the UK, the BBC is probably best known for our news output and our iconic TV brands such as Doctor Who and Peaky Blinders. Within the UK, the organisation is clearly also characterised by our content output and the services across radio, TV and online, and our mission to inform, educate and to entertain. However, we also have a proud history of innovation and have been at the heart of key developments in the technology industry throughout history. We developed early radio networks. We delivered the first colour TV transatlantic transmission over satellite. We introduced CFAX, which was the first interactive information service delivered over broadcast. We pioneered long-form video streamed over the internet through the introduction of BBC iPlayer, and we helped shift an entire nation over to digital TV. Our websites are amongst the most popular in the world. So you could say that we've been a tech company from our inception. Leaning into Voice was a logical progression. We recognized two things early. Firstly, and most importantly, we saw an opportunity to reinvent the way we interact with our audience that could pave the way beyond broadcast to a two-way conversation. Secondly, our public service output is perfectly aligned to meet the demands of users' early habits in this space, access to news and access to radio. The sharp growth in smart speaker users, now present in about 20% of UK homes, and the multiple millions of voice-enabled mobile phones in our pockets very much vindicate the value of investing in this space. We started out by experimenting with new ways for the audience to interact with us. We introduced an interactive radio drama and launched a now Webby Award-winning children's experience. Last year, we launched a pioneering interactive news service, giving users the choice to go beyond a short news briefing. They can take a deeper dive into stories that interest them and skip the ones that don't. Like TV, online, radio, and all our other news outputs, the interactive news service has very much become part of the BBC's newsroom, where our editorial team crafts and curate content to meet the needs and expectations of the audience wherever they are and however they would like to interact with us. As a public service organisation, we strive to offer the audience a broad range of content and services that goes beyond filter bubbles and that's in the public interests. We don't just want to present them with the things that they think they want. The ease and efficacy of using voice as a tool to navigate to exactly the content that user wants has been where the medium's seen the greatest success. But as Justine mentioned, a key challenge has always been discovering new things. We sought to address this challenge last year with an experiment that brought together one of our most traditional forms of output, radio, with one of our most future-facing, voice. We adapted a well-known game on the breakfast show of our flagship radio station, Radio 1. The game, where normally a handful of listeners answer a series of questions posed by presenter Greg James and the guest celebrity of the day, in order for them to guess the age of that listener, was opened up to a much wider audience. Thanks to the great work of the BBC's voice and AI team, all Alexa users, prompted from the live broadcast, were able to engage with the game, play with Greg and Blink 182, And then when they'd finished, they could seamlessly return into the live radio broadcast. A perfect opportunity to use this medium to bring us closer to the audience. Maintaining a direct relationship with our audience is crucial for the future of the BBC. We live in a data-driven economy, and in order to serve our audience better, it is vital that we're able to understand how they engage with us and how they would like to engage with us. The voice platforms that exist today are incredibly important in getting content to our users, but we don't have the opportunity to offer a direct relationship if that's what the user wants. In addition, for all of the ambition our teams have to create new experiences and foster new ways of interacting through voice at scale, we are limited by the tools made available to us via third parties. And these are just two reasons why, in August last year, we announced that we were launching our own voice assistant. And we're very excited that as of last week, users have been able to get a first glimpse and interact with our early beta. UK members of Microsoft's Windows Insiders program, the community of people who regularly test out new technology, are able to test out the very early iteration of the world's first public service voice assistant. The foundation of Beeb is built in a collaboration with Microsoft, and by marrying together our respective expertise, we can seek to deliver another service that will delight our audience. We're starting off small to get the important things right, and we will iterate as we go, but I'm delighted to be able to demonstrate the service to you now.
Okay, Beeb, what can I do?
I'm new, so I can't do everything. But you can ask me to play any of the BBC's radio stations, shows, and music mixes. Or if you're curious like me, you might like a BBC podcast. You can also ask me for the weather or the latest news and sport. Why not give it a try by saying, "Okay, Beeb, update me."
Okay, Beeb, update me.
Sure. Here's your weather. The temperature in Salford is 7 degrees Celsius. Mostly cloudy with a scattering of showers throughout the day. A few bright spells between showers too and a moderate westerly breeze. These are the latest headlines.
Hello, it's the BBC News. The Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, is urging hospitals in England to use any spare lab room.
That's all I have for you. Now you can ask me for a joke. If you're interested, say, "Okay, Beeb, tell me a joke."
Okay, Beeb, play Radio 2.
Here's BBC Radio 2.
As I said, it's early days, but a few things to call out. We went for a warm and friendly male voice from the north of England. We wanted to represent the nation as a whole, and we were keen to distinguish ourselves from voices that dominate the market today. This is a launch proposition. It's an early iteration. In its first instance, it will offer users the ability to ask Beeb to get live and on-demand radio, music mixes, podcasts, as well as news and local weather updates, and of course, jokes. Beeb's personality is crafted by the incredible talent within the BBC, some of that talent that's responsible for some of our very best shows. Privacy is paramount. The BBC will not record any audio without explicitly requesting our users to opt in. With no plans at this point to release any dedicated hardware, we believe that choice is important and the audience should be able to talk to us if they want to. We also believe the audience should be able to access core services through the means that are currently available to them if those conditions are fair for the provider. Most recently, in the wake of the global pandemic, through our partnerships with big tech organizations, we have together been able to help audiences access vital information in innovative ways. We're huge supporters of interoperability and we're huge supporters of collaboration, and we welcome opportunities to ensure that our assistant is as widely available as possible. And we hope to see more of that with new and existing partners in the future. So thanks very much for listening. And if you're in the UK and you run Windows 10, we invite you to download Beeb through the Beeb app and help us shape the future together. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Ben. Thanks for showing us Beeb for the first time. Really exciting. Well, that was everything from us and from the European public broadcasters. Thanks so much, Tim, Danielle, Justine, and Ben for presenting some of your work. If you as an audience have any questions or would like to reach out to us, please don't hesitate to drop us a mail. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.